Good evening all. Welcome to the Etihad, where Norwich's difficult start to the season is proving possibly even more difficult than we'd anticipated. A 5-0 defeat to the champions here in Manchester. A brutal, bruising encounter. Just like it was on the final day of the 2019-20 season when Norwich were relegated already and they were sort of kicked through the trapdoor by Pep Guardiola's side with a 5-0 defeat that day. They are on a different level to Norwich. You can sum it up quite easily. They had one man playing today who they signed for £100 million in Jack Grealish, who scored his first goal. Norwich have spent about £50 million in the transfer window so far this summer. That's by far the most they've ever spent in their transfer window. They are a self-funded club playing against a super rich, billionaire-owned club who were in the Champions League final last year. On paper, logically, it's a mismatch. You just hope coming into these games, as we saw in September 2019, that a bit of magic, a bit of lightning can strike, that you can catch them on an off day, that you can have a great day, and that you can pull off something special. That didn't even come close to happening today. Manchester City had lost both their opening games. They'd lost at Wembley to Leicester in the Community Shield, and they'd lost 1-0 at Spurs, of course, on the opening weekend of the Premier League season. So they were fired up for this one. They absolutely flew out of the traps. It was champagne football a lot of the time, really. The first time they'd had a full house in here since the pandemic started. Fireworks shooting out of the stand opposite us, the biggest blue flare you could ever imagine, leaving smoke wafting through the air at kickoff, and they really, really enjoyed themselves today. There were 1,450 Norwich fans here, and it was not the away day they would have dreamed of in any way. Their team were outclassed, perhaps as much as expected, but ultimately a 5-0 defeat leaves them with a goal difference of -8 after 2 games, having played Liverpool and Manchester City. We all knew this was going to be difficult, but this was pretty bruising, and I guess the only way they'll be able to frame it is that these were the final 2 games of their pre-season, that disrupted pre-season that they weren't happy with, that they were perhaps a little bit unfortunate with in terms of the COVID outbreak and things like that. But now there can't be any more excuses. Okay, Leicester and Arsenal, they are tough games, but we have got to be seeing more than we've seen today. Norwich matched up to the champions. They went with a 4-3-3, went up against them, fought fire with fire almost, and it didn't work at all. 7th minute, already they were into a 1-0 lead, and Dimitris Giannoulis had a really bad first half, was hooked at half-time alongside Lucas Rupp, and didn't cover himself in glory at all. They were just getting so much joy down that side. Gabriel Jesus puts the ball in the box. Grant Hanley tries to smash it clear and just manages to smash it against Tim Krul, and a bit unfortunately for Tim, that will go down as his own goal, no doubt, from point-blank range. We thought it was 2-0 on the 15th minute when Ferran Torres had scored, but that was eventually pulled back correctly, to be fair, because Bernardo Silva had just trodden on Milot Rashica's ankle a little bit in the build-up, and that's why Rashica had lost the ball. But again, that had come down to there. So it was 2-0 at half-time, and as I say, Giannoulis, Rupp both came off at the break, and Barley Mumba and Kenny McLean both came on, and you just hope that second half, that there were some positives there, that they could just stem the flow and that it wouldn't become a drubbing when it could have already been 3-0 at half-time, but it wasn't. Jack Grealish, as I said earlier, had scored the second, and that again came from the left. Jesus putting the ball across, evaded everyone, and to be fair, it had been great. Grealish knew a great deal about it. It sort of went in off his knee. Max Aarons couldn't prevent it from going in from close range. So, yeah, could have been 3-0 at half-time. Luckily, it was only 2. But it didn't. It got worse. There were initially good signs after the break, to be fair. Barley Mumba had a really good immediate spell after the break. It's very busy still in the press box here. The press conferences and stuff are still going on all around me, so I hope the sound quality is okay. But I'd be getting wet if I went into the stand, so this will have to do for today, and I'll keep it relatively short because I'm sure you don't want to be dwelling on this one too much, and we'll move on pretty quickly. But the goals in the second half: Aymeric Laporte, Kane, Sterling, Riyad Mahrez. These are top players, aren't they? Literally some of the top players in Europe. And it was horrible. It was brutal. Norwich's only shot was Milot Rashica just after Josh Sargent had come on for Pukki in the 77th minute. Made a bit of a nuisance of himself. I think it was Laporte. He beat to a ball in the middle. The ball bounced kindly. Rashica probably should have squared it to Sargent, but he went for goal and rising shot over the bar. That was literally Norwich's only attempt at goal, really. Man City had 67% of possession. Their pass success completion was 94%, and that was just the most apparent thing throughout. Their movement and their passing quality were just on a totally different level to Norwich. They were really on top of their game today, and it was a mismatch, sadly. There's no point getting too down in the dumps about this, because we all knew this was difficult. We all knew that any points from this, probably first two and possibly even first four, were going to be a bonus before you got round to the games that are more winnable. But it's always hard to take, to lose 5-0, and that matches the worst result in Daniel Farke's era as well, doesn't it? 16 shots for City to 1 from Norwich, 6 corners and 1. So I think we can pretty much park the game there, can't we? I mean, in terms of ratings, there's not much point today. Everyone's a 5, pretty much. Rupp and Yanulis a 3. They both just weren't up to standard at all in that first half, when, as I say, Man City were excellent. You could probably say Mumba and possibly Sargent deserve 6s for what they did off the bench, but 2 of the goals in the second half did come down Mumba's side. The Sterling goal, a lovely Kyle Walker pass had sort of cut him out, and then Jesus cross, nice, simple, sort of typical Raheem Sterling tap in from close range. Let's not worry about ratings too much. Really, now it's all about the attention onto how they finish off the transfer window, isn't it? We're expecting, hopefully, as long as everything goes through okay, that Brandon Williams will arrive for Manchester United after this weekend. May even be in time for the Bournemouth game on Tuesday night, which I'll come back to in a second. And if he were to play, and were to play well at left back, I'd have thought Mumba will now get a shot to show what he can do at right back as well. Then Yanulis may well find himself out of the team. This wasn't a good one. There was a moment, particularly for Rupp as well in the first half, where Daniel Farke just turned around and it felt like he'd snapped, really. It was about 10 minutes before the break, and he decided that Rupp was coming off then. Basically, Rupp had lost the ball. He had gone back and helped to win it, but then put a poor pass out of play as he tried to find Yanulis on the left. So, I don't think he's covered himself in too much glory today. Again, defensive midfield, Daniel didn't change. He went with Billy Gilmour in that deep anchor sort of pivot role. And again, we just didn't see that he has that Oliver Skipp positional, or Alex Tete positional defensive nous. That doesn't seem to be what comes naturally to him. I wrote in my column this morning that Chelsea won here in May with Billy Gilmour starting. He was starting alongside N'Golo Kante, the best defensive midfielder in the world probably, but he wasn't the defensive midfielder that day. Chelsea played a 3-4-3. It just doesn't feel like Norwich did enough to stop Man City today. It felt like they were sort of there for the taking. And I said this in our window watch video on Friday evening, that all the niceties you keep hearing about the nice football that Daniel Farke's teams play and stuff, and Guardiola talking so warmly about Farke and things, you don't hear opposition managers saying that about Burnley and Sean Dyche, or about Palace under Hodgson, or maybe even Brighton under Graham Potter. I think there's too many niceties in there. They've got to get tougher. They've got to have a sort of steelier outlook on things, and just maybe show a bit more determination in their quotes and how they're talking and how they're approaching games, because at the moment that was too abject, that was too passive against, again, admittedly, one of the best teams in the world. But you just got to hope that they can build from this, and they've been thrown in, as Daniel Farke likes to say, into the cold water. Now it's about coming out of it and showing your backbone, showing what you've learned from these 2 games, showing what you've picked up. So that leads into the Bournemouth game, doesn't it? Tuesday night, I'm sure we're all going to be really interested to see what happens. You'd have thought Angus Gunn will be in goal. Probably Zimmerman and Omar Bamadeli will come into centre-back. We'll see about the left-back situation, or both full-back situations, really. But you've got other players. McLean's going to want 90 minutes. We haven't seen Schollis yet. Sargent, Eder, Dowell. There's plenty of players who are going to get an opportunity on Tuesday now to really impress. And Bournemouth will probably make some changes as well and lay down a marker for that Leicester game at Carrow next Saturday, when fans are going to want to see progress. A goal would be a good start, of course. I don't think even that is a game you can go into and really hope that Norwich are going to win. That, they finished 5th last season. They should have made the top 4, really. They're in the Europa League. They won the FA Cup. They've got players like James Maddison, Jamie Vardy, loads of good. Harvey Barnes has just signed a new contract, hasn't he? Tielemans. They've got a great squad. Wilfred Ndidi. Yeah, they're a very good team, Leicester. But we need to see a lot better than this. And if it is to be a game where they're not going to get anything out of it, we need to see that they're able to shut up shop a lot better than they did today, because this could have been worse. It could have been even more painful. But thankfully, it feels like almost that it was such a mismatch that they are probably going to be able to shake it off, press reset and start again, because there's still a long way to go. 36 games. These two matches will not define Norwich City's season, but it's unavoidable that there are going to be alarm bells ringing after this. No fan wants to see their team conceding 8 goals in the first 2 matches of the season at whatever level you're playing, even if it's against a team funded by a country, pretty much. But there we go. 5-0 here at Manchester City. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the game in the comments, and if you can place it, head over to pinkin.com for all the post-match reaction and analysis.